When tech billionaire Vincent Crawford humiliated me in front of 500 industry leaders, calling my groundbreaking AI algorithm cute minority work, he had no idea I'd secretly recorded everything. What happened next destroyed his billion-dollar empire and changed Silicon Valley forever. This is my story of justice served cold. If you love stories of karma and justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Trust me, you won't believe how this ends. My name is Destiny Williams, and 3 years ago, I was nobody. Just another black girl from Detroit, with big dreams and an even bigger chip on my shoulder. I'd clawed my way through MIT on scholarships, working 3 jobs to pay for ramen noodles and textbooks, all while my classmates complained about their trust fund allowances being late. But I had something they didn't: pure, burning determination, and a mind that could see patterns where others saw chaos. During those sleepless nights in my cramped dorm room, fueled by cheap coffee and the sound of my roommates snoring, I created something extraordinary: an AI algorithm that could predict market crashes with 97% accuracy. I'm talking about seeing financial disasters coming months before they hit, potentially saving investors billions of dollars. I knew I had gold in my hands, but I also knew the harsh reality of Silicon Valley. As a young black woman, I'd need more than just brilliant code to get anyone to listen. I'd need the perfect opportunity, the right moment to prove that genius doesn't come with a specific skin color or gender. That opportunity came in the form of an invitation to Tech Vision Summit, the most exclusive technology conference in Silicon Valley. We're talking about hundreds of the most powerful people in tech, the kind of people who decide which innovations change the world and which ones get buried in patent offices. Getting invited felt like winning the lottery, except this lottery could change my entire family's future. I spent months preparing for that presentation. I used every penny of my savings on professional materials, rehearsed my pitch until I could deliver it in my sleep, and even bought my first real business suit, a navy blue numbers that made me feel like I could conquer the world. My grandmother, God rest her soul, always told me that preparation is the bridge between dreams and reality. I was ready to cross that bridge. The day of the summit, I walked into that gleaming Silicon Valley conference center and immediately felt the weight of being different. Among those 500 attendees, I counted exactly 3 black faces, including mine. The energy in the room was electric, but it was the kind of electricity that felt exclusive, like a club I wasn't sure I belonged to. That's when I first laid eyes on Vincent Crawford. Picture this: a man in his early 50s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire college tuition. Vincent Crawford wasn't just rich, he was Silicon Valley royalty. His company, Nexus Technologies, was worth $8 billion, and he had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely merciless to his competitors. When it was my turn to present, I walked up to that stage with my heart hammering against my ribs. The spotlight felt like fire on my skin, but I channeled every ounce of my grandmother's strength and began explaining my algorithm. For the first 10 minutes, I had them. I could see it in their faces, that spark of recognition when they realized they were witnessing something revolutionary. Then Vincent Crawford raised his hand. "Excuse me, miss." He paused, making a show of not remembering my name, even though it was clearly printed on the program. "This is all very cute, but let's be honest here." He stood up, and suddenly, every eye in the room shifted from me to him. "This is cute minority work, but real technology requires real intelligence. What you're showing us is basic coding that any intern at my company could produce in a weekend." The room erupted in laughter. Not the kind of surprised laughter you hear when someone makes an unexpected joke, but the cruel, knowing laughter of people who were relieved to have their assumptions confirmed. I stood there frozen, as Vincent continued his verbal assault. "I appreciate the diversity initiative that got you here," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. But let's not pretend this is actual innovation. This is exactly the kind of feel-good participation trophy mentality that's holding back real progress in tech. I felt my world crumble in real time. Months of preparation, years of dreaming, generations of family hopes, all destroyed in 60 seconds. But here's the thing Vincent Crawford didn't know. I had my phone in my pocket, and I'd been recording everything since the moment I stepped on stage. Every word, every laugh, every second of that humiliation was captured in crystal clear audio. I finished my presentation somehow, though I barely remember the words that came out of my mouth. The applause was polite but hollow, the kind you give someone you pity. As I walked off that stage, I felt smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. But underneath that crushing humiliation, something else was growing. A cold, calculating anger that would fuel everything that came next. I spent the next few weeks in a dark place, questioning everything I'd worked for. But I've never been one to stay down for long. My grandmother used to say that sometimes you have to go through hell to appreciate heaven. And I was about to turn Vincent Crawford's life into his personal hell. I started researching, and what I found made my blood boil. Vincent Crawford had a pattern, and I wasn't his first victim. 3 years earlier, a brilliant Asian engineer named Dr. Patricia Chen had developed a revolutionary data compression algorithm. She'd presented it at a tech conference. Vincent had dismissed it publicly, and 6 months later, Nexus Technologies had launched their innovative new compression system that was suspiciously similar to Patricia's work. When I reached out to Patricia, she was initially hesitant to talk, but when I told her about my experience and played her the recording, something changed in her voice. "He destroyed my career," she whispered. "He made me feel like I was crazy for thinking my work was valuable. Then he stole it and made billions." Patricia wasn't alone. Over the next few months, I uncovered a network of victims, brilliant minds from underrepresented communities whose innovations had been stolen by Vincent Crawford. There was James Rivera, a Latino software engineer whose security protocol was now the backbone of Nexus's cyber defense division. Dr. Sarah Okafor, a Nigerian computer scientist whose machine learning model was powering Nexus's recommendation engine. The pattern was always the same: public humiliation followed by theft, backed by an army of lawyers who silenced victims with NDAs and legal threats. But I had something none of them had possessed: proof. That recording was my smoking gun. Clear evidence that Vincent Crawford knew exactly what he was doing when he humiliated and stole from innovators like us. 6 months after my presentation, Vincent's company announced their revolutionary new AI system for market prediction. When I saw the demonstration, I nearly threw my laptop across the room. It was my algorithm, line by line, variable by variable. They hadn't even bothered to change the core mathematical structures. The media hailed Vincent as a visionary, and Nexus's stock price soared to record highs. That's when I knew it was time to strike back. I reached out to Michael Torres, an investigative journalist at TechWatch who had a reputation for taking down corrupt tech executives. When I played him the recording and showed him the evidence I'd compiled, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "This is bigger than just patent theft," Michael said, leaning back in his chair. "This is systematic oppression disguised as business strategy. This story could change everything." But here's where the twist comes in. Something I never saw coming that made this whole situation even more explosive. While Michael was digging deeper into Vincent's financial records, he discovered something that made my jaw drop. Vincent Crawford wasn't just stealing ideas from minority innovators. He was specifically targeting us as part of a deliberate strategy. We found internal emails where Vincent discussed neutralizing emerging competition from diversity hires and maintaining technological superiority through strategic acquisition of minority-developed intellectual property. In other words, he wasn't just a racist thief. He was a calculating predator who saw our marginalized positions as vulnerabilities to exploit. He knew we had less resources to fight back, fewer connections to expose him, and less credibility in a system that already doubted our abilities. But the real twist? Vincent had been bragging about this strategy to other tech executives, calling it his diversity dividend. He'd been teaching other companies how to systematically steal from underrepresented innovators, creating an entire underground economy built on our stolen dreams. Michael and I spent months building an airtight case. Patricia, James, Sarah, and 8 other victims agreed to go on record. We had financial documents proving the thefts, internal communications revealing the strategy, and of course, my recording. The perfect cherry on top of this evidence cake. We timed the release perfectly. Vincent was scheduled to deliver the keynote address at the Global Innovation Awards, where he was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to technology. The irony was delicious. The article dropped at exactly 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time, 15 minutes before Vincent was supposed to take the stage. The headline read, "The Thief of Silicon Valley: How tech billionaire Vincent Crawford built his empire on stolen dreams." Within minutes, my recording was everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. Vincent's own words condemning him from every screen in America. Cute minority work became a rallying cry for every person who'd ever been underestimated because of their race or gender. I watched Vincent's keynote speech live, and it was the most beautiful disaster I'd ever witnessed. He walked onto that stage with no idea that his world had just exploded. The audience, many of whom were frantically checking their phones, sat in stunned silence as he began his prepared remarks about innovation and integrity. Then someone shouted from the audience, "What about the stolen algorithms, Vincent?" I watched his face change in real time. As he realized what had happened, the confident smile faltered, then disappeared entirely. He tried to continue his speech, but more voices joined in. "Cute minority work," someone yelled. "Where's Patricia Chen's credit?" called another. In the background of the live stream, you could see people's phones lighting up with notifications. Nexus Technologies' stock price was displayed on a ticker at the bottom of the screen, and I watched it plummet in real time. Down 30%, down 45%, down 60%, $8 billion of market value, evaporating as Vincent stood there, finally speechless. He left the stage without finishing his speech. The Lifetime Achievement Award sat unclaimed on the podium, a symbol of a legacy that had just turned to ash. The aftermath was swift and merciless. The FBI launched an investigation into patent fraud and racketeering. A class action lawsuit was filed, representing 12 victims of Vincent's systematic theft. The board of directors held an emergency meeting and forced Vincent to resign. Major investors pulled their funding. Government contracts were canceled. Within 6 months, Vincent Crawford went from being worth $8 billion to filing for personal bankruptcy. Nexus Technologies was forced to restructure completely, paying out settlements that totaled nearly $2 billion to victims and their families. But here's the most satisfying part. I didn't just get revenge, I got justice. My algorithm was properly credited and licensed to 3 major financial institutions for a total of $50 million. Patricia got her compression technology back and launched her own company. James's security protocols were finally attributed to him, leading to consulting contracts worth millions. I used my settlement money to start the Innovation Justice Foundation, which helps underrepresented inventors protect their intellectual property and fight back against theft. We've already helped over 200 inventors secure their rights and expose corrupt practices in the tech industry. Vincent Crawford's empire didn't just fall, it became a cautionary tale that changed Silicon Valley forever. Companies now have mandatory bias training, diversity officers with real power, and policies specifically designed to prevent the kind of systematic theft Vincent perfected. As for Vincent himself, last I heard, he was living in a studio apartment in Sacramento, working as a technology consultant for small businesses. The man who once commanded $8 billion now charges $50 an hour to help local restaurants set up their point-of-sale systems. Sometimes I think about that moment on stage when Vincent Crawford looked at me and saw nothing more than a cute minority he could dismiss and exploit. He thought I would stay quiet because that's what his victims had always done before. He thought my silence was guaranteed because people like me weren't supposed to have the power to fight back. But here's what Vincent Crawford never understood. When you systematically underestimate people based on their race or gender, you're not just being cruel, you're being stupid. You're dismissing the very minds that could revolutionize your industry. And eventually, those minds will find a way to revolutionize your life right out from under you. The greatest revenge isn't just destroying someone's empire, it's building something better from the ashes. Every time a young person from an underrepresented community gets proper credit for their innovation, every time a brilliant mind gets the recognition they deserve, instead of watching someone else profit from their genius, Vincent Crawford's legacy crumbles a little bit more. He thought this black woman would stay quiet. Instead, I spoke up and changed everything. If this story inspired you, please like and share it to spread awareness about the importance of protecting intellectual property and fighting against systematic discrimination. Subscribe for more incredible stories of justice and karma, because trust me, this world is full of people who think they can get away with anything until they meet someone who refuses to let them. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed quiet, or would you have fought back? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the person they underestimate is exactly the person who brings them down. The algorithm that Vincent Crawford called cute minority work is now being used by banks around the world to prevent financial crises. My basic coding has saved investors over $10 billion in the past 2 years alone. Not bad for an intern's weekend project, right, Vincent?